And when you give yourself permission to fully claim and own this next version of yourself, or the version of yourself, or who you are, who you've always wanted to be, that's when you actually define the path for yourself.
Today's guest is Jenna Phillips Ballard, and she is a leadership trainer, coach, speaker, and serial entrepreneur. She is also the co-founder of Ascension Leadership Academy in San Diego with her husband, Brad Ballard. We dive into letting go of your old identity to embrace what's true for you and who you are becoming, stepping into ownership and full authenticity, cultivating self-worth to believe you are worthy of the things you yearn for, responsible leadership and leading with grace, and other epic topics such as the mindset shifts that allowed Jenna and I to attract better relationships into our lives. I'm excited to be sharing this video episode with you. There's so many golden nuggets in this. If you're here, keep on watching as we dive right into it. Jenna, thank you so much for making the time to be here in Sacred Leaders. I'm so excited to speak to you today.
I'm so excited to be here. It just feels so beautiful to connect with you and see you and learn more about you. And I just love what you're up to. So it's just great to be here. So thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you. So I want to start with something that I saw you speaking on social media about recently, actually. I read one of your posts, which I found really interesting, where you were sharing about your transition from firstly calling yourself a unicorn and declaring to the world that you were a unicorn, and how you built that identity and stood out in the industry as that, and the journey where you realized that that was no longer an identity that you fully resonated with, and moving towards this conscious empress that you describe now, right? And I know that it can be really hard sometimes for people, period, let alone for people that have built personal brands and businesses around a specific identity. And it can be easy sometimes to almost fall out of alignment with who we truly are in the present moment because of an attachment to who we are perceived to be. So I felt like that was a really inspiring post. When I read it, I felt so much bravery in that journey of self-inquiry that you went through. And I would love to hear more about how that was for you, and what are some of the challenges that you had to face, and biggest takeaways from this journey so far, to going from unicorn to conscious empress.
Thank you for that. Well, I mean, the whole journey has been super powerful for me, because I really, once upon a time, way back when, I was a personal trainer. So I've not been an online coach, transformational trainer forever, but I was a personal, fitness, strength, and training kind of trainer before. And now I train people from the inside out, from like the depths of their soul, and get them out of their heads and into their hearts, and train them through a series of somatic exercises and processes, and also a lot of different kinds of healing ceremonies. So that's a different level of work that I do now. But when I first started with the kind of people that I was working with, was back when I was 23 years old. And so I shifted from personal trainer and mindset coach for celebrities to, I made this leap to be this online coach, this online personality, where I was giving people an opportunity to really connect to their deepest truths, their authenticity, their integrity. And so really making that leap was probably an even bigger shift for me. Because I wrapped my whole identity around fitness. I wrapped my whole identity around, the woman who could overcome literally anything, the woman who woke up from a coma with brain damage and recovered from brain damage, who was also diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, and how fitness and nutrition and healthy mindset and certain supplements have ultimately created this pathway for her. And that was the foundation of most of my messaging. And so when I shifted into this different kind of coaching, it really felt, I was really up against my upper limits because I felt this, I was comparing myself to what so many other people were creating online. And I really got to break through that, because I realized that by me holding myself small, I was giving other people to hold themselves permission to hold themselves small. And by me standing in my power, my confidence, and my courage, I was giving others permission to also do the same. So I knew that it was a part of my calling. It was really no different than me coaching somebody into their greatness and saying, okay, by when? Like, by when are you going to announce to the world that you're now a coach? By when are you going to announce to the world that this is who you authentically are? And so, and the challenge for me, the biggest challenge for me was, at that time when I was making that transition, was really feeling in limbo, because I'm not the kind of coach who would post up next to a water fountain with my laptop or my iPad and like a cup of coffee and be like, let's book a strategy call. Like, that's just so not me. And so it was really powerful. Actually, a woman had a good friend of mine had a dream about me. And she said, Jenna, because people would always call me a unicorn. Like, I was just so vibrant and colorful. And that's just kind of how people would remember me. And they would save my name, Jenna the unicorn, in their phone. And so she said, I had this crazy dream about you last night. She said, you were on stage at this event, and it was a unicorn event. And all of the women that were there, they were dressed like unicorns, and they all showed up in tutus, and there was glitter everywhere. And there was pink tulle and like chandeliers and high back chairs. And I was like, oh my God, that just sounds so amazing. And I was so enrolled in that vision that she had. And she said, that's what I see possible for you. And so I went home that same day and downloaded like all this information from the universe, and I created Unicorn University. And so I really created a lot of online products and courses, and that was my branding. And I was bold enough to basically say that I'm literally a unicorn, literally and figuratively, and what it meant to be a unicorn. And so I did these outrageous photo shoots, and I would climb up boulders in an elegant dress and high heels, and just do crazy positions and poses, and just be outside of my box, and express myself and use my body as a work of art. And a lot of that was basically created from my experience at Burning Man. So I really understood the value of giving yourself permission to be fully expressed. And so that's really what being a unicorn meant for me and for the women that I was coaching. And then when it came to this next iteration of me, like and by the way, literally today, my website is officially live, my brand new website. So JennaPhillipsBallard.com. I know. JennaPhillipsBallard.com is live, and it's the next iteration of me. It's me as a conscious empress. So it's so exciting. And so I was getting this new website built. And so she kept asking me, the woman who's designing my website, she kept asking me, so what about Unicorn University? And are you going to have this tribe and this community? And I was feeling so stuck, because I realized I wasn't resonating with that anymore. And I felt a lot of guilt and shame, because I had so many women who called themselves unicorns, and they really resonated with that. And that was the way that they built these relationships. I mean, the sisterhood, the relationships, the connections, the transformation, the breakthroughs, the growth that has been built from and created from this space called Unicorn University, and this brand called Unicorn. I felt like I was ultimately leaving women behind. But when I finally gave myself permission to realize that I was actually creating space for them to rise and elevate with me, to maybe potentially grow outside of this identity that maybe they created for themselves, is that what it means to rise and elevate is also give yourself permission to let go of the old identity. And because now that I'm a mom, now that I have Jax, I mean, I'm not the same version of myself that I was a couple of years ago. And so I really was finding a lot of challenge in trying to fit into this new mold, while dragging this old version of myself and trying to force her into this new paradigm. And it created so much confusion and so much lack of clarity. And I found myself in this holding pattern, and afraid to move forward, because I didn't want to leave anyone behind, but then I wanted to move forward. And so the level of freedom that I gave myself when I finally ultimately announced and proclaimed this new moniker of who I am as a mother, as a woman who's a maniac on a mission, but grounded in the essence of who she is, and really supporting like being the wind beneath the wings of every single woman that I get to coach. It was a huge transformation for me. So all good and beautiful.
Amazing. Sounds awesome. And I would love to hear from that experience. Of course, you've been sharing so many different golden nuggets and lessons that you got from it. And I wonder, for the people listening to this episode, maybe going, okay, how do I know whether I am due to a transformation but resisting it because of fear, or whether I am still in full alignment with that? So what would you say is the first thing that anyone can do in order to assess if they really are still in alignment with the persona, brand, identity, message they created for themselves, or whether they might be resisting a transformation that wants to happen through them because of fear?
I would say that anybody listening, and you're not listening on accident, you're listening to this podcast right here, right now, because you're meant to receive this message. Nothing great can come from fear. If you find yourself afraid of disappointing people, if you find yourself being afraid of not being received, like, here's the thing: when I announced I was a unicorn, come on. I mean, not everyone's going to take that seriously. Some people are going to be like, that's stupid or that's dumb. But like, honestly, most people loved it because I was so outrageous and unlike anybody else. And when you give yourself permission to fully claim and own this next version of yourself, or the version of yourself, or who you are, who you've always wanted to be, that's when you actually define the path for yourself, because it's not going to be built for you. You get to be the ones to cause and create and build that. And I want to acknowledge the fear that maybe some of you are experiencing, the questioning, the doubting, I think that a lot of us as leaders, like, we're afraid of not being approved of, like, we're afraid of not being accepted, we're afraid of not being understood. And there's not one leader in the world who has a 5-star 100% rating review. Like, it just doesn't, like, there is not one person for everybody. It just doesn't exist. I mean, even Jesus, I mean, let's be honest. So just think about it. Think about that. Like, so there is somebody for everybody. And you just get to know that your divine obligation in life is to find out that one thing, find out who you are. And it's okay to reinvent. It's okay to evolve. It's okay to shift. It's okay to let go. It's okay to pivot. I mean, I've reinvented myself a trillion times. I've had multiple brands. I've had multiple different versions of my website. I mean, it's part of growth. It's part of being a human. And so, especially for those of you who are dynamic, for those of you who feel like you are good at a lot of things and maybe not a master of like one thing, you also get to be okay with that. I mean, there's so much judgment. It's like, find your niche and just do that one thing. And so, me personally, that's so boring. I mean, I wear so many different hats. I'm a mom. I'm type 1 diabetic. I am recovering from mold. I am a wife. I have multiple 6 and 7 figure businesses. I've created a lot of success for me in my life. So I could ultimately focus a brand on any of those areas. But at the end of the day, my message is true and alive, no matter what it is that I feel like speaking about in any given day. So it's really, at the end of the day, for me and what I see possible for people, that when you love yourself and you believe yourself in yourself, and ultimately what your vision is, you can create anything. Anything is possible. And what I see possible for the world is a world filled with people who love themselves, a world filled with people who believe in magic and miracles, because I think that either everything is a miracle or nothing is. I don't believe that anything happens on accident.
Yes, I love that. Absolutely. And that just got me thinking on the fact that you mentioned Burning Man before. And I remember we just missed each other in the last Burning Man. You didn't come with that curve, and you went the one, well, so many before. Yeah. But it was my first experience in Burning Man. And I remember thinking, how different would the world be if those were the ground rules, right? Everyone is expected to be fully expressed in their most authentic, outrageous, weird version of themselves. And while that might not be something that you would choose on a daily basis, or something that we would choose on a daily basis, it creates that ground for what's possible. And I feel like this is something that we really get to ask ourselves. If there was no limitation, if there was no fear, like you were saying, how would I be showing up? if I let go of the idea of how I need to show up because of my past in corporate and all of my ex-colleagues and what are they going to think, or because of my religious family and what are they going to think, or because of what I think I need to be for the partner I want to attract into my life or the one I have, how would I be showing up then? So it's a really fun exercise above all to really just ask that question and see what comes up. And then, like you were saying, have the courage as well to step into that.
Yes, I agree. I'm with you, girl, 100%. Yes.
Yeah. There's something that comes up when I look at your work and just the way that you carry yourself, whether as a unicorn or a conscious empress, as a mom, is I feel my experience of you is someone that's really in ownership of their authenticity. And we hear people saying, quote unquote, be authentic all of the time. However, I think that that word authenticity is almost being used as a buzzword right now. And we could all do with taking and understanding that word to a whole new level. So, as you're someone that I see committed to remaining authentic and honoring your weird and embracing whatever it is that wants to go or be through you, I would love to dive into this. How did you become a stand for your own authentic, self-expressed self? And what is something that you see with the women that you work with that gets to happen in order to take that next level of ownership?
Great question. So the biggest thing for me, I think that my development and my evolution in becoming my most authentic self really began when I started investing in my personal development. I've been through a series of, trauma release, somatic exercises, workshops, seminars, courses. I just consistently invest in my personal development. I always have a coach. I always have a mentor. I'm always in a mastermind. And so my authentic self, I would say, is something that is always kind of being discovered, because every single day I'm a brand new person. I mean, I wasn't the same woman that my husband married 5 years ago. And so we're always reinventing our relationship. We're always coming back to love and figuring out how to be. I'll just give you an example. I know this is not really this is kind of like a segue off of what you asked me, but my husband and I had a breakdown in our communication tonight, big breakdown in communication. And so he assumed something and I assumed something, and it kind of just was the foundation of what matters to us, like the principles, the values, the standards of excellence in our relationship is love and forgiveness. And he had a human moment, I had a human moment. And so in the moment when we were having this miscommunication, we both kind of took some jabs at each other, because he was annoyed that because we were at a party, we were at an amazing, incredible experience together. Our son was bumping up against his limits. He was like, I've had enough. Like, it's past my bedtime, and we're trying to live our best life and also manage our child and all the things. And he had a Zoom meeting planned. And so, but he didn't tell me. He scheduled us on Monday. Yes. And so he disappeared from the party for like an hour and 10 minutes, hour, 15 minutes. And so I was managing my son and like all these things and trying to be social, but like not. And then all the, so it was a big, huge it was a mini breakdown. It wasn't that big. It was kind of a mini breakdown, but I was finding him. I'm like, we have to go. Like, and he was frustrated because I wasn't appreciative of the fact that this Zoom meeting was in contribution to, he was working, and he was like, don't you know that I was upset that I couldn't be at this party? And so, the authentic self is always being tested in these types of situations, because when we have human moments and we go into this 3D kind of consciousness, we get triggered, we get activated, we're in reaction, and we don't come from love. And so we really got to kind of check ourselves. And I said, I fully acknowledge that I had absolutely no idea whatsoever that you had this planned, and there was a breakdown in communication. And so we were able to clear it pretty quickly. But love is really the only thing that's authentic. If you think about it, anything that is not coming from love. So the ego, the fear, the scarcity, the puffing up of the chest, the posturing, the peacocking, like it's just, this is stuff that people do. And it's the human condition, and it's the human journey. And so for me to be my most authentic self, it is going to be whatever it is that day, and reminding myself of what matters the most, which is to show up with transparency, show up with integrity, show up with love, and be in contribution, because anything that isn't love isn't real. And that comes from a place, and ultimately a place, of wounds and triggers and responses that are not authentic. And that's my stand for people, is to remind them they have that availability, they have that capacity, they have that privilege and that choosing and the ability to always come from love and remember what does matter to them.
Yeah, I absolutely love that, and I agree. It's so love that distinction, because it's so easy to get into that humanness, and relationships are definitely a really great way of getting into that testing mode. But it's definitely, yeah, it's just being in that space where we can look at ourselves and have that quick discernment moment where we can go, okay, am I in my love? Am I in my truth? Or am I coming from my wounding? Am I coming from a reactive moment due to whatever stories I'm creating? One thing that stands out really clearly for me, again, when I look at your work and just how you present yourself and how you carry yourself, is obviously I look at the professional success that you have created, but not just that, is the way in which you carry yourself in a quite boldly manner, and honoring what you want, and really being the way you speak about yourself. I've been following your work for a while, and I can see just the way in which you show up expresses and lets or inspires that deep self-honoring and self-love. And I know that part of the work that you do is supporting women to really expand in all areas of your life. So when I look at the ways in which you show up, I feel like there is a clear belief that has been solidified, which is the fact that you truly believe that you get to have it all, that it gets to be your way. And I know that this is something that a lot of humans, and particularly a lot of women struggle with. It's not just believing that they're capable of something, it's believing that they're worthy of something, believing that they are safe to have the things that they desire. This happens for both men and women, of course. And I know that because of the cultural conditioning that we are exposed to, it happens even more so for women that may believe they are capable of, maybe see that they could make it happen, but then all of that shame and fear around standing out and shining and being powerful, maybe making more money than your partner or the people around you, all of these fears stand out and come up and surface. So how did you overcome that voice within yourself that says, don't go too big, don't shine too much, don't call yourself a unicorn, don't claim to be an empress, all of these things, and became so comfortable in knowing that you do deserve and get to have it your way?
Such a powerful question, and thank you for asking that. And I do agree with you that so many women at the end of the day just do not believe that they're worthy of receiving what they desire. They don't believe that they're worthy of collaborating with powerful people. They don't believe that they're worthy of being found by an incredible, loving, honoring, cherishing partner who's going to respect them and treat them like the empress that they are. They don't believe that they're worthy of being paid exactly what they're worthy of and what they get to receive, and so much more. The lack of self-worth is such a deeply profound established belief that occurs from a very, 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 very young age. And it requires a significant amount of interruption because it's a programming. As long as you continue to run the program that you aren't enough, you're not worthy, you don't deserve, fill in the blank, whatever that is, then it really becomes the foundation of not only your thoughts, but also your actions, the words that you speak, the kinds of relationships that you call in, the vibrational frequency in your direct environment, because our environment is a direct byproduct of our thoughts, the vibration, the frequency that we allow to exist within ourselves. And so we can change it all. We can literally change everything in our space simply by shifting. I mean, this is not the only thing that must occur, but the starting point is giving yourself permission to announce and believe that you're worthy. And so when I manifested Brad, it was really, really powerful because I just graduated from a series of transformational workshops and seminars and curriculum that really had me realize that the reason why all of my romantic relationships were failing was not because of I was picking the wrong guys. I mean, that was a small part of it. But the biggest part of it was I was the lowest common denominator. All of my relationships in the romantic area were failing because I was going after men or man children, to be honest, who were basically from the get-go going to be a challenge. Like it was going to be a conquest. And I went after these men and I pursued, like I was the man, I was the masculine energy. I wasn't creating space for a man to find me and, sweep me off my feet. Like I really, really took that bold move of pursuing and hunting and gathering and like that masculine drive. And so I realized my big breakthrough was that I learned that my ways of being were not creating and establishing the fertile soil for me to be found and ultimately plant the kinds of seeds that I wanted to have this incredible garden called my life. And so I wound up going through a training called Grace that my mentor, Krista Petty-Raymer, she's just a wizard of all things transformation. She's changed my life. I mean, it's a pretty bold thing to say, but she literally has changed my life and the work that we've done together. And so I went through her program, her training, her 3-day workshop called Grace. And in this experience, I realized it was somatic training and I had this huge breakthrough and realized that my power actually existed in my feminine energy, not in my masculine, because it was in the pursuit. It was in the challenge, the conquest, the checking this off my list and crushing the to-do list and getting the celebrity client and getting featured on this magazine or getting featured in that blog or being on that podcast that had me believe that I was worthy. And so it was in the pursuit of these accolades that had me forget about the power of attracting and allowing and receiving, because as women, we are genetically designed to receive. It is the most natural thing for us as women is to actually be in that receiving experience. And that's what we're meant for. That's what we're meant to do. Yes, we're women, we're powerful. We can fucking do anything. I hope that's okay. I just said the F word. We can literally do anything.
I swear all the time.
Just check in because it just came out. We can literally do anything, but we don't have to do everything. At least we can't do everything, at least not all at once. And so my adrenals were fatigued. My body was swollen. So I wasn't even looking my best. I wasn't feeling my best, wasn't looking my best. I was overtraining. I was exercising like a crazy person. My relationship with food was unhealthy. I thought that eating a salad was going to mess up my physique. So it was in this constant pursuit and this constant chase of trying to be perfect and trying to be something that I wasn't. And I got to discover that it was this huge disconnect. I actually wasn't loving myself, even though I said I was standing for self-love. I said I was standing for, love yourself, you can do anything. When you believe in yourself, you can do anything. Have positive I am statements, you can do anything. And I wasn't living that. I wasn't embodying that. And so I finally realized, wow, I'm literally worthy of being found by a loving, respectful, incredible man who's going to honor and cherish me. Like I get to be found by that person. And 3 days later, Brad found me at Match.com. I mean, it was that simple. So I made that cognitive choice, that cognitive decision that I'm worthy of being found by fill in the blank. I pronounced it, call it a coincidence, or maybe it's not. So I do believe that everything is a miracle. I think that there can't be a gray area with that. It's like either everything is or nothing is. And so I really, and not miracle like accident, but miracle as in, wow, you can declare what you want. It's not some airy fairy woo woo hippie shit. It's science, it's physics, it's law of attraction. When you focus your energy on what you want to experience, and you be bold enough, brave enough to create the kind of experience that you want to have. I'll just share something with you. I had a time in my life where I felt like I didn't have any friends, like nobody wanted to be friends with me. And I didn't have the kind of people in my life that I wanted. And what my ego did not want me to do was to create or host or have a party at my house, because the story that I made up was that nobody likes me and all the things. And I just said, I'm going to throw an amazing, incredible, huge party at my house. And I had hundreds of people show up. So had I believed that I don't have friends and nobody likes me, nobody cares about me, I don't matter, I'm not enough, I probably would have created more of that and chosen certain experiences and created opportunities to be right about that and feel worse about myself. But I decided to be bold and to be courageous and to be brave and do something that my inner child did not want to experience because I had all these mean girl wounds and like all this stuff. So I got to be bigger than that. And that's what's available for every single one of you listening is when you have the thoughts that you can't, you shouldn't, you don't, you won't, it's not possible, whatever that is, it's a lie. It's not real. Because what's real and what's authentic is truth and infinite possibility. What's truth and what's real is you can literally do anything. Maybe not directly, maybe not by your hand, but there is a way. There is always a way. There's always a way to make something happen. Whatever it is that you want, whatever it is that you desire, there's always an investor. There's always somebody to collaborate with. There's always a way to move that mountain. You just get to be willing and committed to figuring it out. Everything is figure outable. And when you give yourself permission to know that and trust that and believe that, the circumstances of life don't matter. What you have or don't have doesn't matter because everything is temporary, literally everything. Whatever it is you're experiencing right now, even if you are freaking crushing it, you're slaying it, you got all this money, like you're just raking it in, that's also temporary. So ride the wave and appreciate what you're experiencing in the present moment because everything rises and falls.
Yes, 1,000%. And it is so important to really get to this place where, regardless of where you have, because it's not really about believing that you're worthy so that you can have lots of money or believing that you're worthy so that you can have X type of relationship, but really so that you can feel in congruence, your inner reality and your outer reality can be aligned with what you truly desire. Because if there's a desire within your soul, within your heart, something that you want to call in, but then the mind is not aligned with the heart, with the soul, with what you want, then there's this part of you that it's misaligned, and there's something that you are feeling within you that it's possible for you, that you are yearning for, that you're feeling called to, and then there is all of the conditioning and all of the beliefs that are getting in the way of that. So really, the way I look at it is I strive to live in the version of myself that feels most aligned, embodied, and at peace. Inner peace to me, it's super important. To feel free within myself, it's super important. And you can't feel free when there is that level of contraction within. When you are wanting something, when you're dreaming of something, when you are feeling like something is wanting to come to you, to be lived through you, and then there are all these blocks that you are placing because of whatever stories you're telling yourself about not being worthy of, not being capable of, not being safe to. And I love that you shared that. That was actually exactly my story with past dating relationships. And interestingly enough, my partner is also called Brad. So you were talking and I was like, yeah, no, that story. And that's all it took.
Great.
Really.
I love that.
Yeah, it took for me to go through so many different relationships where I was also acting from my masculine, almost like I was hunting, and I was like, this is the guy, this is the one I'm going to go for. I would do all the things, and I would know from the beginning that that was not a fit. I wasn't feeling honored, I wasn't feeling respected, I wasn't feeling loved. But that deep limiting belief that said, this is what you get, this is what it is, and the unprocessed daddy issues that so many of us carry without realizing led me to attract these situations. And when I met my partner Brad, I remember having this conversation. I had the biggest breakthrough with the person I was with right before Brad. And I remember I felt so dishonored and so misaligned. And I could see that I had created that. I had attracted that because I allowed it, because I listened to the part of me that thought that was what I was worthy of or capable of, and that was it. And when I had that breakthrough, I said, no more, no ever again. And I remember having this conversation with Brad. We were just friends, and he liked me. I wasn't sure yet. And we were in this kind of like in between phase. And I remember saying to him, the next partnership I am in, it is one where I am going to have my man being full devotion to me. I'm going to be treated like a queen. I'm not settling for anything else. And I claimed it, and I really stated that. And I remember at the time feeling like, what is this guy going to think about what I'm saying? But this is my truth. This is what I get to do. This is what I get to have. And this is how it came into reality. So I love that you talk about that, because it's really, sometimes we think about how we can open up to become available to more things, but it's in these little acts of bravery. It's in the breakthrough where you say no more. It's in the committed decision to no longer playing into that limited belief that we can change things. It doesn't look like all of a sudden one day attracting this big thing out of the blue. It's just in the daily choices where we choose not to engage in beliefs that don't suit us or that aren't supporting us, that we can create that bigger vision for ourselves. So thank you. And another thing that I really wanted to dive deep into with you is, I know that apart from the work that you do one-on-one with women, you have also co-founded with your husband the Ascension Leadership Academy. And there's the thing, when you go into the website, I was having a look at all the different work that you do. It's amazing, by the way. And I love that you refer to it as the House of Responsible Leadership. And in this podcast, Sacred Leaders, we're all about leadership. So I really want to go into, what does it mean to you to be in responsible leadership? And as you call it in your social media, living with grace. What does that mean to you?
Love that question. Responsible leadership, something that we need more of. I mean, there's a shortage of responsible leaders in this world. I mean, you look at the world leaders, the way that people are leading us and leading the planet, and the decisions that are being made. It's challenging. I'm not really inspired by the leaders of the world today. I'm not inspired by the choices that we have. Feel I feel a deep level of personal responsibility to really create this ripple effect of what it means to be a responsible leader. And that means being vulnerable, being authentic, being honest, being committed, being in excellence, saying what you mean and meaning what you say, doing what you say you're going to do, really making sure that you're creating connection with the people who look to you for guidance. Make sure that people can trust you. Make sure that people feel seen, feel listened to, feel heard, feel understood, feel connected. Because I've met so many leaders and really so many influencers who have this presence on social media, but in real life, it's just so different. I mean, it's just
1,000%.
It's so odd to me. And I'm always really curious about that, not from a place of judgment, but just really interested about what's the question that I have typically. I guess honestly, it's just curiosity. It's like, how is it that they have created this personification of themselves, and what must it be like to live in that and to feel like they need to ultimately upkeep this image or run this story about who they really authentically are. And I've actually coached. I mean, we've had a lot of influencers come through ALA, Ascension Leadership Academy, and I just so many times have been so interested again about the internal conversations that they have, and of course, just so humbled when I have the opportunity to support them and coach them and stand with them toe to toe, stand with their ego toe to toe, and challenge their ego and call them forth, call them to a higher game, and support them in deepening their intimacy and their love and their trust with all of humanity, and therefore ascending their consciousness and allowing the highest version of themselves to actually come true. I mean, I've coached the leaders, influencers who have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of followers on social media. And they've created this whole success under this umbrella of this brand or this personification or this moniker, I guess I could say. And so when it comes to them being with them and then realizing that they actually want to pivot and really deepen their messaging and have it be a whole new thing. It's like this identity crisis. Actually, I don't want to be known for X. I want to be known for this. And what I really feel called to is this. But the previous conversation that they had was, I'll never make money doing that or being that. And so it's just this constant chase and this consistent feeling of not enoughness. And so that's something that I feel really called to, is to support people. And even when I was a personal trainer, I was working with a lot of musicians. And if you think about the kind of leadership and level of influence that musicians have, when you go to a concert, when and if we'll ever be able to get back to concerts, but I'm sure you've been to a couple. Gosh, the good old days. But back in the day when we would go to concerts, when you're at a concert, you're not going to look around and think, I wonder, are you a Democrat? Are you a Republican? Do you eat meat? Are you vegan? What's your belief system? What's the religion that you practice? What's your sexual orientation? There's none of that. Everybody is there for one reason, for one purpose: to have fun and celebrate the person on stage. And the person on stage is someone that they all look up to, that they're inspired by, that they're in awe of their gifts, their talents, and they know the songs and they know the words. Some people follow them around and go to multiple shows. And so what's available for these musicians is the level of impact, the difference that they can make, because they'll say, everybody jump, and then everybody jumps, hands, side to side. People literally do whatever it is that they say to do. And having that kind of impact and that level of power and influence can be so dangerous, but also can be so powerful at the same time, because we are just as constructive as destructive as human beings. And whatever we choose, however we choose to direct our energy, direct our focus, direct our influence, that's how we change the world. It's all in our choosing. We all have the ability to choose that. And so I really loved working with people who have that level of influence. And Mark Hoppus from Blink-182, for example, he was somebody that I loved working with. I loved coaching him and I loved training him. And he shifted. I just watched him shift about even how he was on stage. He was so funny. He would do lunges and squats and bicep curls. And, he just totally gave himself permission to be outrageous and have fun. And it was just so fun to work with him and see him give himself permission to do something and be something he's never been before. So that's just a small example, but really responsible leadership we've never needed it more than ever right now. You look at the levels of propaganda that are out there. Yes. that speak into it's fear mongering. The conspiracies, and I'm curious about all of them, right? I can't say that any of them are true or not true, because at the end of the day, nobody freaking knows. Let's be really clear about that. We see information about both sides. We have an idea, what we think is real, what's maybe not real, but it's all kind of scary. All this information that's coming out, these stories, these beliefs, these interpretations, these, and a lot of it's really believable. And I look at both sides. I never only focus on the things that I most resonate with or what would necessarily pop up in my timeline, because obviously the 3 Men in the Basement from Social Dilemma. Did you see that documentary, by the way? Please tell me.
I haven't watched it. I haven't.
Okay. So you'll understand what I mean when you see the 3 men in the basement. So the 3 men in the basement are following me and they are giving me specific news and information that speaks directly to whatever. So I give myself permission and ultimately give myself the responsibility of looking at both sides. After the debate, I looked at Fox News, I looked at CNN, I saw both sides of it and interpreted both of them. And so we just get to be open to multiple perspectives, multiple possibilities, because when we're able to critically think for ourselves, that's when we can actually create sustainable change. That's when we can actually make a difference. When we get kind of sucked into a belief system that is not necessarily something that we've created or curated ourselves, then we just go along with the agenda. We just go along with the beliefs. We just go along with the rhetoric. And so, I was raised Christian, and after my head trauma accident, I developed a very, very, very strong relationship with God, I now say the universe. So I don't practice a religion, but my religion, my belief, my spiritual practice is something that I have created for myself. And so nobody can influence that. I'm super clear about what I believe and what's real for me, because I had a very scary, crazy, intense near-death experience. I believe that there was a walk-in. So I believe that my higher self actually walked in and switched and utilized this vehicle called my body. And it sounds maybe super crazy and woo-woo and airy-fairy, but that's my truth. I believe that a higher consciousness stepped into this vessel called me, because I woke up a different person. I woke up happy. I woke up grateful. And I was in deep, deep, deep chronic depression minutes leading up to the very second that I fell from that hayloft. And so how do you explain that? How do you explain that? You don't, except I know it's true for me and I am able to critically think for myself. And so I really think it's important for us as people to be curious about the things, the stories, the news, the whatever, but not go all the way down super deep in the rabbit hole, because nothing can be changed in the rabbit hole. The only place that we can change anything is when we focus on our vision, we're clear about what's real for us, because the fear, like I have friends coming to me saying that they're terrified about being forced to have a vaccination that has not been tested on people. There's like all this fear about having to be forced to do this, to have this vaccination. And so like, that's a very clear, distinct fear for a lot of people. And so my response to that is, yo, let's just get a plot of land somewhere and be off the grid and build a self-sustaining experience. And a lot of people here in Austin are thinking about that, talking about that. How can we be independent? How can we, let's get a freaking private jet and let's all pitch in, let's all do it. Then we won't have to do anything based upon we get to create our own life. We get to create our own reality. And that's a choosing. And so a lot of people make choices based upon convenience, what other people are choosing, what people in their families and communities are going to do, because people don't like conflict. People avoid it. And so I think that's a big issue for a lot of our leaders today, is that they'll sell out on their beliefs. They will not stand firmly in what they know to be true because they don't want to be cast away. They don't want to get in trouble. There's a lot of fear that's happening right now. And so we all have the ability to be bigger than that fear. And the only thing that we actually can control is where we choose to direct our energy, our thoughts, our beliefs. That's the only thing we can really control at the end of the day. We don't own anything. Yes. I don't even own my body. I could lose my arm tomorrow. My legs could get chopped off by who knows? But you know what I mean? Literally, we don't own anything. All that we have control over are our thoughts and our beliefs. And that's it. And the way that we choose to react and respond to things we experience.
Yeah, for sure. And that's definitely completely necessary. It's been completely necessary all the time, but I feel like I most definitely agree with you that responsible leadership is more important now than ever. And I feel like I was having this conversation both with Alexi Panis actually and Joel Brown in the podcast just recently around the fact that I feel it's always been felt, but now more than ever. And I feel like 2020 has been a year where so many people are waking up to that urgency to really tune into their inner truth, to choose what is true for themselves, to be in deeper alignment and integrity with themselves, to embody their values in each area of their lives even more. I feel like for so long, so many people in this world have been in this autopilot mode where things aren't great, but they're not uncomfortable enough to do something about it. And this is one of the blessings that I see from 2020. It's been the pattern interruption for so many people to be like, okay, now that I can't keep busy with everything that's kept me busy up until now, what do I really want? Like, was this working anyways? Do I want to go back to normal? I hope that people have already forgotten about the idea of the world going back to the old quote unquote normal. But do I really even want that? Or what do I want? And there is where responsible leadership is not only necessary from a space of humanity needing it more than ever, and for us to feel good within ourselves and know that we're in integrity, but even I believe for you to upkeep a level of, not you, but all of us, to upkeep our level of professional success, these will be needed more than ever, because as people start to awaken to their own intuition, to their own truth, they can feel the misalignment more and more. So if playing a game where, like you were saying, you're someone on social media and someone in real life, or you preach something but you're not really embodying it, was working up until now, I truly believe it's not going to work for that long, because people are starting to awaken out of their autopilot modes. And with that comes the ability to discern and see at such greater depth. So responsible leaders and authentic leaders will be seen way more than those that aren't in that alignment. So it's a really exciting time from my point of view, and it's definitely something that we all get to dive into more than ever. There is one more piece that I wanted to speak to you about, Jenna, or with you, when it comes to leading with grace. You describe that in your bio, and you say you support women to lead with grace. And I'm curious to know, what is something that you see in your clients, or you've seen in yourself, maybe a life lesson that you've gone through, um, around something that can manifest often for us as a block for us to lead with grace, versus it being a struggle, a hustle, a push, this thing that feels more like a weight than a joy.
Wow, so beautiful. And I think that this is something that most people would not necessarily consider, because there are so many different ways to lead, but really a few that are super popular. And people seem to replicate or copy or model after the way that it's been done before. And there is one influencer in particular who is all about the hustle and the grind and crush it and slay it and go and do it and run through the walls and stay up for 20 hours if that's what it takes, and you don't need sleep. And it's like, actually, yes, you do. You literally do need sleep. It's medicine.
Yes.
So I think that is great for short term. But what I want to say about grace specifically is that grace is not a feminine thing. You know, you hear the word grace and it sounds soft and airy and, wispy, and I'll think about it. I'll get back to, I'm going to meditate for a week and I'll just get back to you. No, that's actually that's the unhealed feminine. Hello. But grace specifically for me, and what it has meant for me, is that sweet spot between the masculine and the feminine. It's neutrality. And it's the allowance, the permission, the choosing when to access your masculine, when to access your feminine, when to tap into that, and when to come from that place. And so that sweet spot in between the both energies is one of the most powerful places to be, because you have that bird's eye view and you're able to look at yourself from the inside out and the outside in at the same time. And that has shifted everything for me in my leadership, being able to come from a place of responsibility and ownership, and also curiosity at the same time. Because as a leader, I am the first to admit and say and proclaim that I'm not perfect. Even what I do is not a science. It is something that is alive for me, and it's not even from me. I'm the vessel for it. So I channel the information that I get. And people have utilized some of my content word for word, but it's not even mine. So I can't even be mad about that. I mean, my ego is like, well, that's annoying, and she's copying it, but it's like, it's not even my information. So, it's really coming from a place of, wow, 5D, that level of consciousness. If that person has learned the information that I've shared, and it inspired her or him or them to pass it on and make a difference, that means that what came through me is going to impact more people. So really being in from the place of forgiveness, really being in the place of, at the end, like, we all want to do the same thing. We're all up to a very similar mission. We're leaders. We want to change the world, period, in our own unique, special way, period. And so let's be clear about that. Let's be clear about our desire. Let's be clear about what it's going to take for the world to shift, and the world and the planet and every single one of us within it to ultimately ascend to the next level of consciousness. It's going to take collaboration. It's going to take partnership. It's going to take love and forgiveness and curiosity. And so when you lead with grace, you lead with forgiveness, and you know that nothing is yours.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. Love that. So The takeaway that I hear from this is really, in order to lead with grace, to look at where are we maybe getting caught up in the ego and not forgiving, not being in that space of collaboration. And I love that distinction of being in the sweet spot between the feminine and the masculine. I see that as the masculine is the one that helps me get shit done and get direction and solidify the containers, and then the feminine allows me to really go deep into that intuitive healing and inspired journey. So there's two more questions I want to ask you, Jenna. The first one being, where can people find you, and in what ways can people work with you?
I love that question so much. Thank you for asking. So here's the deal, y'all. I am the only Jenna Phillips Ballard in the entire universe. There are a lot of Jenna Phillipses, there are a lot of Jenna Ballards, but Jenna Phillips Ballard, you can look me up on Google. You can go to my website. You can also find me on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Jenna Phillips Ballard, N L L. Super easy.
Awesome. I'll leave that in the show notes as well. And the last question, last but not least, is, in your opinion, what makes a leader sacred?
What makes a leader sacred is when he or she listens to the whisperings of his or her heart and trusts the timing of the universe and allows God, source, spirit, guides to ultimately lead the way.
I love that. And I will absolutely agree with that. Thank you so much. Thank you, Jenna, for making the time to be here, for sharing with us, for the work that you do and who you be in the world. Yeah, I'm super, super thankful for you being here. And I'm really excited to be sharing this episode with my listeners.
Thank you so much for having me. My pleasure.
I hope you enjoyed this video and got lots of value from it. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel for many more value-packed free videos, and share this with anyone in your life who can also get value from it. If you want to get access to all of my free resources and connect, check out the links in the caption. Thank you again, and I will see you on the next video.